That must have been all it was it just timed out for some strange reason.
Cool.
Okay. We are live. We had a little technical difficulty there tonight, but we got her worked out. Let me check and make sure that it's streaming. Looks like it is streaming. Okay, good. My name is Jim Hall. Tonight we have guest speaker Josh that's going to come on and do a little bit of work with us on emails. I don't know what he's really doing too much of, so it's going to be a learning situation for me as well. And of course, Robbin Williams, the real Robbin Williams in the house. So here we are. It's Thursday night. We're going to be covering some email stuff, and we're going to have a good time like we always do, right?
Of course.
What we're here for. You know me, I've been doing this for, I usually say about 30 years. It's something about like that. All the way back from before the internet was the internet. I was building web pages and such. And of course, you guys have met Robbin Williams a couple of times. And I'll let Christy was going to introduce Josh, but I said, Chris, why don't you just take the night off? So Josh, you can kind of introduce yourself and go for it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me on, first of all, because this is awesome. I appreciate the invite. And, the big thing for me is, I haven't been doing this as long as you, Jim, that's for sure. But I have been building websites for a very long time. I started building websites as well back in college. So it's been about 15 to 20 years for me that I've had that experience. I've worked in the technical world for a very long time for a couple different Fortune 500 companies. And I took that experience into building an online based business where I actually build websites and manage them. And I do email marketing and deliverability and content marketing and, a little bit of other things here and there to kind of round it all out. But here just a couple months ago, I left a pretty decent job to run this full time. I got a couple clients that I worked with and decided to take my business full time. So this is what I do now. And so just like you, Jim, this is the life of being an entrepreneur and loving it. And, but my biggest specialties are, really the big thing is the content marketing and the email marketing and deliverability. And so that's what we're here to do tonight is actually the email deliverability. And, like you said, you're not sure what I'm going to do. And that was the fun of it. I didn't want to give it all away because I want to, as we go through this, I think it's going to be a lot of fun because people are going to get to experience in real time what it's like when someone goes in and I guess in lack of better terms, rip apart your email deliverability and tell you what's wrong and then help you fix it.
Sounds good. And you mentioned that you have given up your job. We are actually all three job free.
Yes.
So that's pretty awesome, I think. We've all been job free for a little while now. Just to give you an idea, Josh, how long I've been doing this. I was the computer club president of my high school, and we didn't have hard drives on our computers. So we've been doing it a little while, and I bought my first hard drive in 1993, and it was a gig. And who would have thought you would ever use up a gig? That gig hard drive cost me $600 back then for one gig.
Yeah. It's funny is when growing up, I remember, I think I was about 6 or 7. My dad brought home his first PC to custom build because he worked at an engineering firm and they said, hey, we have this old computer. If you want it, you can go ahead and take it. And he said, cool, I'm going to rebuild it and make it, a little gaming machine. And so I remember that was my first experience into like Doom and Wolfenstein and things like that, because that's what he built it for. He wanted it to be gaming and web surfing at the time. And, and this was, mid to late 90s. And so I guess, it'd be actually mid 90s, because I'd have been like 93, 94 or something like that. But yeah, it was so cool because he brought it home and we tore the whole thing apart on the living room floor. And I remember him telling me each part, like, this is the RAM and this is the, but see, then again, there was no hard drive on that one. It was you had the RAM and that was your memory. And you had a floppy disk for I think it was Windows 93. And it was a floppy disk you put in and it ran off the RAM to actually show it up on the screen.
Probably Windows 3.1.
Or 3.1 even. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually started programming on a Commodore VIC-20 with a 8 megabit system, 8 kilobit system
Kilobit, yeah.
in the early 80s. So
Wow. Yeah.
back I would save my programs on a cassette disc, on a cassette tape, and it actually had a cassette hookup. So I've been doing this a little bit. Now, I wasn't making money back that far, but I was still programming and learning how to do stuff for the future. When I first met Christy, she's like, "You got email? What's email?"
Yeah, no, that's the truth too. Like that's some of the stuff I remember, and this is where I'm going to actually date myself a little bit is, I remember in high school and in college, I was helping people program backgrounds for the moving backgrounds for MySpace pages and, gaming forums and things like that. And so nowadays you don't even like that kind of stuff is all built into a lot of tools.
It's all built in, right?
You don't even have to worry about it.
Is like all gone, so it's so much easier than it used to be. It's really pretty crazy. I see we have Lauren Vines here with us tonight. Lauren, we'll stop with the super techie stuff here in a moment.
Yeah, because I only know enough to break computers. That's all I know.
I will tell you, you say we'll stop with the super techie stuff, but that's the surprise today is
boy.
Email deliverability is actually fairly techie, but I have ways that I get to simplify it and help people, see ways to do it easier. So
and a good thing is most of the techie stuff is like a one-time whammy.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a good thing.
Most of it now is set and forget. So
right.
As long as you said it right the first time, which we'll find out how many things even I have not set right.
Right, exactly. And so this is what we're going to do is, Jim, you're going to end up sharing your screen. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to log into like your email provider, your domain provider, and then also, whatever email marketing tools you're using. And then I'm going to go in and we're going to do this where I'll probably do the request to just take control of the mouse while we do this, because I'm just going to basically go through and we're going to scan through everything. We're going to make sure it's all set up properly. And then we'll talk a little bit about email strategy once it's done.
All right. Well, before we dive into that, let me share my screen and say what our overall curve is for being on this Thursday Night Live.
Yeah.
Is to introduce everyone to HBA and the business. So you should be on a site that looks something like this. Our video should be playing here. If you're not on this page, go back to your email, find out who sent you here. I don't know who all may send you here. So the point is, make sure that you get the link from in your email. Come down here to this red button. This is how you can get into the all-in-one business that we talk about. We're not going to talk about it too much tonight. We're just going to be giving value. But when you get into this all-in-one business, this is our business setup. Scroll all the way down to the bottom and make sure and check this check mark down here. That'll get you a free 2 weeks of the traffic and conversions mastermind setup. Sorry, I flubbed that all up, but this is really good. Make sure and read through everything, of course, but go ahead and check this box off. You'll get 2 weeks free. Cancel it anytime. They won't do you wrong. They're really great people. And let me head back over here to the page. And then if you have any questions or comments, just comment down below and we will do our best. I know we're going to be kind of limited tonight on time, but we will do our best to get back to you. I see Lauren said she came in via a Commodore 64. Yep, yeah. I had a Commodore 64 also.
I do remember my dad did have one that we got, we revived it. This was probably closer to my teenage years. And we ended up doing a little work on that. So I got to experience a Commodore 64 for a little bit, but yeah, my big breakthrough in tech was when I started doing the websites and the forums and, doing all the custom making all the different emojis for Skype back in the day, or actually, sorry, AOL Instant Messenger and ICQ, which here's an interesting thing. Did you know that ICQ still exists?
People still use it? That's kind of crazy.
People still use it. I had no idea. And I was looking it up the other day because I thought, I wonder when they finally went under. And I found out that they still are up and running and they still have people using it.
Well, that's an interesting thing too, because that brings me to my domain was actually still on Internet. My creativethoughts.net was on Internet domains from the original purchase of in 2000. Now I recently moved it over to HBA hosting, and I was curious if that may have reset my timeline. Even though it's 20 something years old, is it really only 2 years old because it's changed domain servers?
That's a good question. Changing the registrar in some instances, depending on how the transfer was done, there are some times where it will reset the ownership timeline because you changed who actually is handling the registrar. It doesn't always. So like certain companies work really well together. I've seen like GoDaddy and Namecheap and SiteGround and Bluehost. A lot of those tend to integrate well. But when you have some older hosting systems and you go to a newer one, a lot of times it will reset that timeline because they can't transfer all the information over properly.
A real pain in the butt to get it transferred over too. So I wonder, but even though I would hate for that to be the case, and nothing I can do about it now anyways, but I couldn't deal with them anymore. They were just too archaic, so I had to make a move. So anyways, okay, so I have my GetResponse open, and I have my HBA hosting open.
Perfect.
So I can go ahead and share my screen, and you can take it over if that's the process we want to go about.
Yeah, that'll work great, and we'll work on.
And Robbin, I'm sorry, hold on. Let's let Robbin talk a little bit before we just dive right in.
I'm here to absorb. I'm here to absorb. My email marketing journey was a journey, right? And I learned quite a bit along the way, but it wasn't until we did the 30-minute workday that's when I started diving into like email deliverability. So I'm looking to learn some stuff from Josh while we on here. So I don't have much to add yet. I'll probably ask some questions during the training.
And questions are welcome too. Like this is the thing is I'll do my best to kind of walk through and train a little bit of like what I'm doing as I'm doing it and what I'm looking at and why I'm looking at it. But then there's always going to be times where a question might come up. And so feel free to pop out and say like, hey, why is that there? Or what does this mean? Or what does that mean? And, I've gotten to a point now with this email deliverability stuff that it's very rare now that I come across things that I don't know with the email deliverability. I'm in this every single day. So.
Right. And then I'm not sure if we went to, Jim, but I'm not sure if we went through like why it's important for people to work on their deliverability. But basically, in a nutshell, to keep it simple for everybody, if you're doing email marketing or if you're looking to get into email marketing, a lot of times our emails go straight to the spam or the promo inbox, and it's for various reasons. I'm not going to cover it because I'm pretty sure Josh is going to hit all of that. But basically, what Josh is doing is helping us get those emails from the spam and the promo inbox and back into the inbox of your prospects on your email list. So obviously, common sense, the logic is the more emails that your prospects see, the more sales and stuff that you can make in your business, or even just build a relationship. And the less they see, you could be losing a lot of business.
Yep.
So.
Well, and an interesting little case study about that, just recently, one of my clients they have an email list of about 50,000 people. And they came to me because they were having troubles with their open rates, and they went from about a 40 to 50% open rates in September to then October, seeing their open rates drop substantially in the first week of October. And they came to me and said, hey, what can we do about this? And we went in, and sure enough, there was some records that weren't correct. There were some things that just weren't set up at all. There was other, strategies that they were using that weren't great. Like they were scraping leads off of websites and not validating them. So some of them were bad. So with a lot of that, what happened was they were kind of dialing back on their promotion strategy. And they said, we don't want to spend a lot of effort, and time trying to do all these promotions if they're falling flat anyway. But we also don't want to not email people. So they went from emailing most of their list, which on average, they were sending about 20 to 30,000 emails about twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. And because it was all very segmented, it was based on what the promotion was and who needed it. And they had different lists. So we got done with it, and it took them a few days to kind of get things back up and running. But then they sent me an email, and in all caps, that he said, "You are the best." And then underneath it, he said, "Our open rate on this last promotion was 77%.
That's
And we
wild.
ended up making more money in this one promotion than we had for an entire month of September."
That's
And I
wild.
was like, that right there is just a testament that if you have things set up properly and you get into people's inboxes and you can actually get them to see your content, there is more chances to get a lot of interest in what you're doing, which turns into a lot of sales. And it's not, foolproof, obviously. None of this stuff is 100% guarantee, but if you do things the right way, you can get the right results.
Right. And I think that's, oh, go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
And every percentage is more money. So,
Yep.
I mean, it directly equates, so it's a big deal.
For sure.
Yeah. And I was going to say, everything is not, like guaranteed, but everything that you work on and fix right just helps add into the possibility of your emails going into the inbox.
Higher and higher and higher. Yep.
Yep. Cool. Love it.
All right. Well, let's open her up and get her going.
Sounds good.
So here we are.
And I'm going to do this, get it out of the way.
Is requesting remote. Now, I don't know what it may look like to you. Hopefully you'll just have the one screen.
Yep, I just got the one screen.
Okay.
So here we got get response, and then here we've got the email stuff open here. And then that's good. And this is your HBA hosting here, because you're still on the other system.
Correct.
And then so
what
what we're gonna do first.
What I primarily use is this Jim B at creativethoughts.net on this
Right.
screen.
Okay. Yeah, the creativethoughts.net. Sure. And so what we'll do for this first is, the first thing I like to do is we'll come in and we'll actually go look at the domains themselves.
Okay.
So we'll go down here, go to domains.
I think this,
Actually, we'll go this way.
go to my products.
We'll go my products. There we go. And so we'll come down here, go to manage all. Oh, I guess they're down there. That's fine. It'll pull this up. There we go. creativethoughts.net. And so we click on that guy, and this will bring us into the domain page. We'll go to manage DNS. And so what we're doing is we're looking at the records that Jim has here in his DNS. So this is basically everything that your domain has listed as the records that will populate any of the information for everything that this domain does. So any emails he has listed here. And so what I'm looking for is things that typically look like some sort of domain key or some sort of authentication. And so I can see here, we've got a couple different domain keys in here. So these look like they'd probably most likely be from GetResponse or some other autoresponder. And so we look at that and we say, okay, those are there. I can see that we have this SPF record that shows this secureserver.net, which for a lot of people that don't know this, secureserver.net is what GoDaddy uses for all of their email marketing, like all of their email hosting. And this system for HBA hosting is built on top of the GoDaddy platform. So this would actually cover the SPF record for the email that Jim has set up within his system. However, I can see already that we do not have a GetResponse SPF record in there, which that would potentially cause some issues with emails going to spam. And so I'm a firm believer that if you see it, fix it. And so we're just going to come in here and we're going to go in here like this. And the nice thing, so a couple things about SPF records. So what an SPF record is, it stands for Sender Policy Framework. And what it is it's basically a list of domains and IP addresses that you are allowed to send emails from. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't send emails from somewhere else. It just means that anything that comes from these domains or any IPs that are in here, they are actually going to pass what's called the SPF alignment check. And what that means is that the email providers like Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, AOL, they're all checking, are you sending from a domain that actually makes sense and is actually, you know, something that you're authenticated with? And so right now, get response isn't in here. So some emails that are going out from get response could be failing that SPF check. So what we do is you can only have one SPF record. So this V equals SPF1, that's the value of the record. So you can only have one of those for your domain, but you can also have some for subdomains. So this little @ symbol in the name section, that's referencing that that's the root domain, which is the creativethoughts.net. I have certain email things that I do where I have subdomains where I have different like sender domains and things like that. So you could have a separate SPF record if you had something that said like mail.creativethoughts.net or something like that. If that was something that a platform set up. Now, GetResponse doesn't do that, but other platforms do. So inside here, we can add multiple include tags to put other records in. So we're going to put this include, and for GetResponse, it's _SPF.getresponse.com. And then there's this little all button at the back, right? This little reference back here. There's actually 3 values you can put in here. There's that minus, which basically means if it's not included, then just kind of like don't pass it at all. Like just fail it if it's not included. There's also this little kind of squiggly, or I think that's called a tilde. And so that little tilde there, that would be what's called a soft fail, where it's like, we'll fail it, but we'll still kind of let it through. And, you know, we're not going to give it really a negative mark. And then there's this question mark one, which is just basically just check it. We don't want to do anything with it, but just check it. Now, for me, I generally use the hyphen like that or the tilde, because you want either a fail, like a hard fail, or a soft fail. A hard fail just means that it's really being scrutinous on what is there and it won't pass unless it exists in that SPF record. The soft fail is like, well, if it looks like it could have been somewhere, it might pass. So this is just safer. And SPF records also prevent what's called spoofing. So let's say, for example, Jim is really popular with this creativethoughts.net domain, and somebody says, you know what, I'm going to try to act like Jim and try to ride on the coattails of his success and use a domain that's similar to his, and then say that I'm from creativethoughts.net, but then they go to send from like Outlook, for example, or Gmail. This SPF record will actually prevent their email from passing the SPF check. And with that minus all instead of a tilde, it will actually prevent them from getting through at all, because it's going to say it's not authorized to send from that location. So it does a few different things, but that's the gist of it. And so now that that's updated, we know that now GetResponse is in there, and we don't have to worry too much about that. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is in here, we see these 2 other domain keys. So I'm going to check GetResponse. And so for those of you that don't know how to get there, you go into your GetResponse account, you click on your picture up at the top right, go to manage account. And then in here, there's this little email addresses section. And what we're looking for, obviously, is he's got the creativethoughts.net domain here. He's got his, different sending emails in here where he has different names that he sends from. And we look for this tag up here. If it says authenticated, then that means that it's actually set up properly. And we can confirm that by looking up the CE9 kind of tag there. And we can go back over to the DNS records and see that there is that tag right there. So we know that that's the proper DKIM record. We know that that's set up and authenticated because GetResponse says it is. And we know that we shouldn't have to worry too much about any of that, because it's all going to be good to go on that front. So now we know from a GetResponse standpoint, GetResponse now is fully aligned. The SPF record is there. The DKIM record is there. And so before I move on to the email side of it, Jim or Robbin, do you want to add anything or ask anything?
No, I don't think I have any questions. And for the viewers too, if you don't know how he got to this DKIM, and I know in HBA we teach you how to do this stuff, so you get step-by-step training. Because I would even though I've done it a couple times, I would not even be able to really do it on my own right now, and I just log into the HBA training and get step-by-step. So even though you might not understand this 100%, it's step-by-step training for this. So don't let it spook you away or freak you out.
That's a good point, because I did this, I mean, pretty much exactly from HBA's training. So I'm surprised I missed the get response, but stuff happens.
It happens. Yep, exactly. It happens. And here's the thing too, is that, we'll talk a little bit later how, if you're not sure about this stuff, how you can get even connected with yours truly to help you do these things in your side, if this kind of scares you a little bit as well. So we'll touch on that later. So, okay. So we know we're good with get response. So now what we want to do is we want to validate and make sure that all of the authentication for the email side is taken care of. Now, here's a really cool thing about HBA hosting. This is with the old system like this that we had, which is the GoDaddy covered system. This is also with the new system that we have, which when we moved over to the new HBA hosting, they both do this. If you have an email set up through HBA hosting, then it actually will cover you on this secureserver.net SPF record, and they actually already have a lot of this stuff already taken care of with these CNAME records, where they have an email subdomain there, and they actually have a couple other things in here like this clientconfig.microsoftonline.net domain here as a CNAME. A lot of these things here are all preset, where you don't have to set up additional authentication records in order to make sure that your email is authenticated. So Jim, that's a question for you then. I think we talked about this a little bit before, but if I remember correctly, your email for this is all done through HBA hosting. You don't have like a Microsoft 365 or anything like that.
Well, actually, Microsoft 365 just took this over.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, so it is coming through Outlook. But I have my Outlook all set up. I mean, we can look at it too. I don't know if it matters.
Right. So here's how we can figure that out, is if we come in here and we go into the little person thing, let's go to my products, and then we'll come back over here. So now what we can do is we can come down and go to email and office. And then, so this Microsoft 365 email essentials basic. So this is actually, so even though they took it over, generally most of these are going to be done. They're going to be managed by GoDaddy itself. And so if we go into like the options, for example, what we're going to notice is that it's on this free plan. So this email essentials basic on this free plan like this, it says Office Online is, read only, and it, just has regular email storage, things like that. So anytime you're on this free plan, GoDaddy basically handles the majority of this. And all they really did for this cut over to Microsoft 365.
Because I pay something for that.
Do you pay for it?
Yeah.
Okay. So that might be a little different here.
Maybe they switched it to free when they switched to Microsoft 365.
It is possible they did that, because there's this one over here, which is because this says extend your renewal length. Yeah, it doesn't say anything there, but like this is the free one that it looks like that it's on right now, because it says current plan. So it's possible they might have just switched it over, because I know they got a lot of flack for that, because a while back they took the free accounts away. And so maybe they switched back for it, but let's do this. Why don't you go ahead and we'll just do this, and we'll just click sign in for this one quick. And then I'll let you kind of take over so you can get signed into the right ones. Because it might have something in there for us. It might not. We'll see. All right, there we are.
Now, I've never actually been in this suite, it looks like,
That's
because I normally run it from my Outlook.
Right. So what we're doing is we're going to come in here and we're going to click on this little admin guy, and it's probably going to bring up GoDaddy stuff, the HBA hosting again. So here it comes in here and it says, hey, congrats, this is live, blah, blah, blah. Yes, we know. And if we come down here and we say, okay, here we go, Jim B at creativethoughts.net. Let's go to manage. And in here, Microsoft 365 admin, we're going to go to advanced. They make it really difficult to get through all this stuff.
I see.
So then we got to go in here to this guy to exchange. So it looks like they do have you potentially moved completely over to Microsoft 365. So this is something to think about, is that if you're just using the email essentials and they don't have any of this available, then you don't have to worry about this. But since it is here, we want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases. And so what I did is they bring you in, if you're using this exact system, they bring you into this old dashboard. This is Microsoft's old Exchange admin dashboard. And so I usually just the easiest way to get there is this DKIM button kind of down under protection. You click on that and it's going to take you to this page and say, hey, we've moved. And you just click the little blue text here to go over to the DKIM page. And then it will bring you over to what's called the Security and Compliance Center in Microsoft. And this is where we'll actually set up the email authentication. And so now we can see here, creativethoughts.net is here. And so we can see it says no DKIM keys are saved. And so we want to create them. So we click on that guy here. And it's going to say saving for a bit because it's got to create everything. And hopefully, I was actually working with a client earlier today. Okay, good. It did go through. There's actually locked up on us earlier for the Microsoft stuff. So that was a little interesting. But so what we're doing now is these are the values they give. So they say, hey, here's the CNAME values that we want you to put in your domain provider in order to do this. Now, here's what's funny is I had a question one time. Somebody said, well, if GoDaddy is handling the email and they're setting up all these accounts for you and they're doing all this, why aren't they setting this up for people when they get started? And there's a really, really stupid, but also easy answer for this. It's because they don't know either. They don't have people that are on staff that know all this stuff, that understand what to do. And for them to set up some sort of configuration, even if you have your domain through them, it's almost like they don't really have a direct connection to that kind of stuff, because that would require them being able to connect all these dots together. And we have the technology for these kinds of things, but there is no, and I emphasize this, there is no company, no domain registrar out there right now that will automatically do any of this unless your email hosting is directly related to their hosting thing. So since GoDaddy moved everything over to Microsoft 365, it's even further of a disconnect for them.
How much does any of this matter for the normal person?
So here's the thing. For the normal person that's not using their email for marketing, it doesn't. Because if they're just sending emails one-to-one, I mean, yeah, they'll probably see their email land in somebody's spam folder every now and then. But most of the time for the normal person, it's not going to matter all that much. But the minute you get into marketing.
Since they did this, the email I'm getting into my inbox, 90% of it goes to my spam folder, and there's like no way to keep it from happening. I have to. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's where the other part of that too is, because this is such a widely unknown topic, and it's one of the reasons why I've gotten so big with this lately, is because so many people had not set up their systems, and a lot of these email providers are really doubling down on protecting people's inboxes. And that's why, I've noticed that just in the last couple months, there was a big shift in a lot of the spam filters and the algorithms that are used in order to track these things. And so what happened was, when this shift happened, I noticed a lot of like spammy emails that were making it to my inbox, because you have to retrain the algorithm when you redo it. Microsoft did it, Google did it, Yahoo did it, AOL did it, Zoho did it. They all basically updated all of their code at almost the same time. because they came up with a new system to track spam emails. So it's going to be harder to get in the inbox now. But if you set all this stuff up ahead of time, it's way easier and way better to get in. And I have actually got a cool couple of tools later on that we'll set up for you here, Jim, that are going to give you even more visibility into how your deliverability is doing, and especially from a Google standpoint, because they're the biggest email provider right now. Microsoft and Yahoo are a pretty close second, but Google is still the #1 email provider out there. So, but yeah, for email marketers, all this stuff is basically a necessity now. If you don't have this set up, it may work for a while, and then all of a sudden one day you'll get up and look at your stats and go, holy cow, what happened? Why is everything down to nothing? And it's because these things aren't there. All right, so we're going to go back here.
I have a question before you move on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the part that you're working on right now, what is this equivalent to how our setup is with HBA? Because I realize Jim has a different type of setup with his email. Is this equivalent to just the email portion, the webmail portion, where I haven't watched your training yet, but I know Mike used to teach us how to connect the HBA new email and edit the DNS settings. That's what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so this is what I'm doing right now is I'm connecting the email authentication to DNS. Now, here's the thing for HBA folks is, in the new HBA hosting, if you take the free email account that's inside of the domain provider for HBA hosting, it's all automatic. All of this is already done. So it's because they manage everything in-house. So that's one of the reasons why Paul and Mike went with that provider, is because it took a lot of the guesswork out of it. You still have to set up the get response SPF and the get response DKIM. And I do actually have a new training inside of the configuration piece of it for the deliverability, where it does show the actual new system. And so I think it's in the same link that Mike has for get response. And then it's just a second video down there for setting up the SPF and the DKIM and everything for the new system. And I even actually had him put in there all of the SPF records for all of the autoresponders that connect to our builder. So it should make it a little bit easier for most people that are setting up their system brand new, for if they're using HBA hosting. Now, if they're using something else like Namecheap, or they have GoDaddy, or they have the old system here like this or whatever, these are steps that are going to be necessary. So it's a little bit more technical work. It's a little bit more kind of hands-on that they're going to have to do that. And like I mentioned, there's a way that this can be done pretty easily. And I've got a really neat way for people to get a hold of me to get some help with that. But this is something that, like, for me, I use Google Workspace for my emails. So when I bought a new domain at HBA hosting and I authenticated it, I had to do everything basically from scratch because I didn't have an HBA hosted email. So I had it through Google. So there's a lot of that stuff that, it depends on the tools you're using. It depends on the email marketing platform you're using. Some of them require a lot more setup than get response. Some of them, use text records. Some of them use CNAME records. That's where this gets confusing, is because people say, well, I don't know which one to use. I don't know which platform's better. I don't know what record to use. I don't know where to go. And you're not alone. There's so many people out there. Even, I'll even reference, I won't say them by name, but I worked with a $100 million a year company that they do PR work here in the US, and they didn't even know this stuff. And they had an actual professional 15-year email marketing veteran on their team. And he was questioning everything I was doing, because he's like, is that really necessary? The whole time, because he had no clue that these things even existed. So that's just the level of unknown that is out there right now for all of this stuff. And if you go online, you can Google email deliverability and you'll get so many different responses. I mean, it seems like every single site has a different explanation, a different set of instructions and different recommendations. And it's because everybody's going based on their experience. There hasn't been an industry standard. And that's what I'm actually working on trying to change. I'm actually working with a few different companies to try to figure out how we can implement an industry standard that says, hey, this is the bare minimum to get the best deliverability. So that's actually what we're doing today too, is setting up what I have dubbed as my standard. And it's what has given people the best deliverability so far. So. All right, so we already had, so we'll go back here. So what I'm doing is we have these things that say host name, and then it says points to address or value. So we start with the host name, and we want to highlight that, copy it, and I'm just using Control C to copy and Control V to paste. And then we come over here and nope, we want to do a CNAME record, and we're going to paste the name in here. And then we come back over to domain keys. We're going to grab this value down here, copy that, and then we're going to say that's the value, and then we can add that record. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come back over here while that other one is saving. We're going to highlight the other one because you need both of these. And we're going to add a new one. And we're going to go CNAME here and paste that one in. We're going to come grab this other selector, copy that, paste this one in here in the value. And I'm just leaving this TTL over here. This is called time to live. You don't have to change this if you're using this system. And for most of them, whatever their default value is, just leave it as that. But if there isn't a value, I recommend either if they go by hours, I recommend at least 1 hour. And if they go by like the number value, at least 7,200 for the number value at the minimum. I think that's number of seconds or minutes or something like that. I don't remember exactly how they do it with the numbers, but like the new HBA hosting system we have, that one actually uses the number values versus the hours. So, okay, so those are in there now and we can validate, yep, they're both there and they match selector 2, selector 1. And so this will actually take a few minutes for it to kind of go through. But basically what we have is, here's what's interesting is I've had people go in and they say, well, I put in these records and it's still not working. Well, there's this little button right here. And right now it says disabled. So we have to make sure we click that to enabled. And you'll see right now, it's probably going to be too fast and it's going to yell at me and say, it's not ready. Oh, that was very fast. So here it's saying it's going to take several minutes to synchronize the change, but now we can see that it's enabled. So, and we can see the status says signing DKIM signatures for this domain. So there's a button down here that people ask about. They say, what is this rotate DKIM keys? Chances are you'll probably never have to use that. However, in the event that if you have a situation where somebody got a hold of your, there's what's called a private key and a public key for the DKIM signing. It's like a long, it's kind of what you saw with the get response one. It's like a long set of numbers and letters. So that's this other one. If we go back over here and this one that's down here with all these letters and numbers and slashes and pluses and all that stuff, that's what's called this is the private key, or sorry, the public key. And then the private key is actually stored in the account. So like get response stores the private key in their backend. And then they give you the public key. So that way, this is what goes out to all the email providers to let them know. And this correlates back to your account. Sometimes people who are doing bad things with emails will figure out a way to get a hold of your public key. And then they'll try to use that to send emails as you. This is where the SPF records come in. That helps prevent a lot of that from happening. However, if that happens, there's the opportunity to do what's called rotating the keys. In the case of get response, unfortunately, get response does not have a lot of that option. You can see here, they don't have an option to rotate the keys, but there's a reason for that is because get response doesn't actually expose their private key to any of the users. So your public key, if something happens to it and someone starts sending email as you, it won't get signed by them at all. What usually happens is somebody gets a hold of the public key and the private key. They install the private key on their server and the public key on their domain. This all sounds very technical, but I've only had one instance in the last, let's see here. I was doing a lot of this. So it's been about 3 years since I started doing the email deliverability stuff. And I've only had one person that had to rotate their keys because someone was acting as them. So, and the only reason it happened is because they were messing around on sites they shouldn't have been. So if you're not doing bad stuff, you'll never have to worry about that. So now we know that that's working. We know that we have in the domain settings, we have this SPF record for the secureserver.net. Now, this is where we get to have a little fun. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I validate that these things are working. So I have two tools that I use. There's an easy one and kind of a more complicated one. The easy one is called, funny enough, easydmark.com. And this is where you can get kind of a quick look at your domain and kind of how those things are working. So creativethoughts.net, right?
Yep.
So what we're going to do is we're going to scan it. And right now it's telling us, hey, your SPF record looks good. Your DKIM record looks good, but there's no DMARC and there's no BIMI. Now we'll set up a DMARC record and I'll explain what that is here in a minute. But this BIMI record, most people are not going to use this for people who are solopreneurs, small business owners, like people within HBA. You're probably not going to use that. Two reasons. Number one, it's not necessary. But number two, it costs about anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500 to get a trademark logo and a signed certificate to be able to have a valid BIMI record for your domain. So don't worry about it. It's not going to hurt your deliverability to not have it. I've got great deliverability with an average of a 40% open rate on my email list, and I don't have a BIMI record. So it's not a necessity to have good deliverability. For bigger businesses, I will tell them, yes, you should have a BIMI record. And I'm working with one right now, that PR firm I talked about earlier. We're working to try to get theirs done, and they're having a heck of a time getting the logo trademarked because unfortunately they have an animal in their logo, and the animal is very resembling the logo of another company. So they're having a heck of a time saying, well, ours is different for these reasons. And they're going, well, but it looks like this one. So it's fun. But so what this tool does is it checks for these records. And for the SPF side, it's green, so we don't have to worry about it. But there's a really cool thing that this tool does. And it shows you, if you click on this little lookup result, it'll show you how many lookups that this domain is performing with SPF. There's a reason why this is important, because SPF records have a maximum of 10 lookups that are allowed. If you go over 10 lookups, the entire record fails every time. So if you stay under 10 or 10 or less, you're good. So what we're doing is we're looking at, we have two main domains. We have secureserver.net and then spf.getresponse.com. And for secure server, they're showing all of the IP addresses that are listed here. But the reason I wanted to show this is because we talked about, like, there's the Microsoft 365 element to the emails now. And a lot of people think that they have to add in the Microsoft SPF record. But I'm going to show you something that GoDaddy does with this secure server. Check this out right here. spf.protection.outlook.com. That is Microsoft's SPF record. GoDaddy or their secureserver.net platform, they've included that SPF record inside there because they've partnered with Microsoft for all of their email needs and all of their email deliverability. So it makes sense why they would have that in there. So if you are using GoDaddy and their email services and you are using anything with that, all you have to do is have that secureserver.net, and it covers the GoDaddy side as well as the Microsoft 365 side. And then of course, GetResponse, we can just see that GetResponse calls out to all their IP addresses here. So that's why I wanted to show this, but it also, this is how you can check how many lookups you have. And that way, if you have a lot of tools you use, like I do, sometimes you have to get kind of creative. And so this is, again, we're talking super technical here, but these references down here where it has this IP4 instead of this include : these IP4 references do not count towards lookups. So what I've seen people do, let's say, for example, like Jim was using 3 other marketing tools for other parts of his business, and he was already at 10 lookups. So Get Response took it over the edge. What we could do is put it in here, come all the way down to the bottom, and then just copy all of these IP4 references out and replace the include : SPF for Get Response, and just put these IP references instead, because that's all that the email clients are doing, is they're just checking that domain to pull the IP records to verify that the IP address that you were sent from actually is allowed. It's not the domain that it is, that's just the lookup they're using. So if you have too many lookups, you can start finding these IP ranges, and I call them ranges because they have this, 0/23 or 128/25. That's a range of different numbers that they use in that section, but that's what you can use as an alternative as well. And again, most of this stuff is not stuff you're going to need to know to be a successful email marketer, but we're going through it because this stuff is being recorded so people can come back and look at it later. And there is, for all of you that are watching that are HBA people, I'm actually working right now building out an email deliverability course for HBA premium members. And the reason why it's only going to be for premium is because it's going to be on the email marketing side for traffic and conversions. So we're going to talk about how to set up for best deliverability. We're going to talk about actual like email marketing strategies and things like that.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah. So it's going to be a little while because we're getting into holiday season and it takes some time to put these videos together and edit them and all that. But I've already talked to Paul and Mike and we've already been working on it. And I've got two of the videos done. And I think I have, I'm actually curious now. Let's see, how many of these do I have listed? 8 videos that is probably going to be in this little mini course for this system. So it's going to, we're going to go into all this stuff super deep. What is SPF? What is DKIM? What is DMARC? Like, we're going to go over everything in this course. And I'm even going to talk about like things that hurt deliverability, misconceptions about deliverability. Like when we're talking about it's going to be a course, this is probably a course that most people could spend $500 to $1,000 to buy to learn, and premium people are going to get it for free. So
pretty awesome.
Yeah,
yep.
I know a guy that helps people out with this, and he charges $6,000.
I know a guy.
Well, and that's the thing is I've seen a lot of people that have charged a lot of money to go in and do these things. And the reason why I'm on here doing this with Jim and Robbin is because I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the, the significance and the value and helping people out. Now, granted, part of my business is charging people to do these things, but not people that I love and grow with like Jim and Robbin. So I'm on here because I want to actually serve. But so anyways, let's get back to it here because I don't want to make this an all-night affair. So we're going to go back to the actual domain scan, and we can see here that it tells us that we need a DMARC record. So this is one tool that I talked about, Easy DMARC. They do give you the opportunity in this platform section. You can do this DMARC record generator, and they'll kind of set it up for you. But I have a better option. And this option is actually going to be super cool because it's going to give you some actual reporting that's meaningful and will help Jim actually track his deliverability stuff. And so it's a free tool. It's dmarc.postmarkapp.com. And what this does is this is going to give Jim a weekly report now of all the sources that his emails are going to come from. And did they pass SPF and did they pass DKIM? Now, a fair warning, Jim, is that Get Response will probably fail at the SPF check on this report here because Get Response does not allow for what's called a custom return path. So they don't have the ability to have like a custom sending domain that looks like it's coming from your domain. So it can't do that reverse lookup. However, it will still pass the SPF check going out because it's allowed to go out because we put that SPF record in. So in here, we're going to go grab jimb@creativethoughts.net to keep everything aligned in there. And then here's the really cool part, right? People that are like, well, I don't know what goes in a DMARC record. Watch what happens when I click this button. Bam, DMARC record. They build it for you, but it's not fully done because this is a basic record. But there's a couple things that we're going to update in this record. So I just copied it. We're going to go back over to GoDaddy and we're going to go add this new record. So I get the question all the time. People say, well, what is a DMARC record? Like, why is it important? So DMARC, if we go back to the easy DMARC page, you can see it stands for domain-based message authentication reporting and conformance. It's a lot of words to basically say it's checking to make sure everything is in conformance and everything's aligned. It's a reporting structure to tell the email providers that everything is set up properly, everything's aligned, and that it can pass the DMARC check. And it will tell the email providers what to do with the email when it passes the DMARC check. Without a DMARC record, what you're doing is you're basically leaving your email marketing up to the consideration of the email providers and letting them decide what to do with your emails. With a DMARC record, what you're doing is you're telling the email providers what to do when your emails pass or fail. So right now, the record they give, what Postmark gives, they have this P equals record. That's a policy. So that's for the root domain. And this actually says none. What that means is that it's not doing anything. It's just there. It's going to check and make sure things are aligned. But if something doesn't work or something does work, it's not going to do anything. So what I do is I change this to what's called quarantine. And quarantine basically is if everything passes, it's going to encourage the email provider. So Gmail, Yahoo, AOL, it's going to encourage them to put the email in the inbox. Now, I say encourage because it doesn't force it. It just gives them this little green check mark that says it's all good. You should do good things with this. Then it goes into the spam filters for the email provider, and they'll do what they're going to do with the spam stuff. But for the most part, it'll give them the okay to say, yes, this passed.
What's the code for force it?
So the code for force it doesn't exist. I wish there was. But there is another one option that's called reject, which doesn't reject your emails. But what it does is if an email doesn't pass SPF and DKIM, like both of them, it fails both of them, then it will actually reject the email from even making it to the email provider. I don't use that one personally. This is where a lot of these misconceptions come in and the mixed opinions, because some companies like easy DMARC, and I'll show it here in a little bit when they update it, but they'll say like, oh, you have a none or quarantine policy, you're not fully protected. It's a lot of times it's a sales tactic to get their services to be fully protected. Sometimes it's that people agree that they want to be, that the reject is the only way to go to protect against spoofing. Spoofing doesn't happen nearly as much as it used to. And so I prefer to not risk the deliverability, side of things. And a reject policy can actually cause deliverability issues if something goes wrong down the line. So quarantine, at least if it fails, it just kind of says, it failed, throw it in spam. A reject would say it failed, get it out of here. And so that's why I use the quarantine policy instead. So anyway, we have another one over here that's called SP, and that's for the subdomain policy. So we just basically update that one to the same thing. So that way they both are aligned. And then now we have this code at the end that says ASPF equals R. So this is alignment for SPF, and then the R stands for relaxed. So essentially relaxed means we're checking against the SPF values, but we really just want to see if it's coming from the general domain, the general ownership of that domain. So if it comes from, like, let's say if GetResponse one day decides to update their SPF stuff on the back end or update their return path, you're not going to get a failure because it's set to strict. And so this happens a lot with especially Google, because Google, when you send out emails, their servers don't send it from the same MX records that you have. So what happens is they go, oh yeah, your MX records point to our servers, but our servers actually send it from like googlemail.com instead of google.com. And then so the SPF records will fail because they go, well, that didn't match. And it's like, well, you're right, it didn't, but it was still from Google. So with a strict setting, which is the S instead of the R, it would have to be an exact match. With relaxed, it just basically is it coming from the overall domain that it's there. I agree. Same thing with the quarantine policies. It's not as strict and it doesn't fully protect against like spoofing and stuff. But again, spoofing is no longer as big as it used to be. I mean, it still happens, but really people who are spoofing are usually doing it because they're trying to, again, ride on the coattails of someone's success and saying they are this person when they're not. And that is easily squashed by having a proper authentication and SPF setup versus trying to do all these weird codings with strict and reject. The last one I put in here is called A DKIM equals R. Same concept. We're just looking for, is the authentication set up and is it coming from the same provider that the setup shows inside of the domain records? So if let's say you rotate the keys, but you forget to update them in your system, but the keys still exist in the provider's system, then it's just going to end up saying, oh, well, the key is there. Maybe it's not the same key, but it's there. So we'll just kind of let it pass as like a, okay, go ahead. So DMARC is one of those things. The long story short of it is it's really what ties everything together. Without a DMARC policy, you're not telling the email providers what to do with your email and you're leaving it up to interpretation. And when it comes to email marketing, you do not want to leave anything to the interpretation of the email providers if you can handle it. So, or if you can help it. So basically what we've done here, Jim, is we've gone through, we've made sure that we updated your signing keys for the on Microsoft stuff for your creativethoughts.net. We made sure that we got you an updated SPF record with GET response. And we made sure that we, validated your DKIM key with GET response. And then we also gave you a DMARC policy. And then this reporting, so we're going to touch on that real quick, is this report will go out every week now, Jim, on Mondays. And it will show you basically like this picture here. And it's going to show you the sources your emails came from and did they pass SPF or DKIM. And so what's cool is it'll show this other sources. So let's say you forgot about a tool that sends out some automation or something. It'll actually pick that up and say, hey, you've got this domain that sent X amount of emails and none of them passed. You might want to check that up and see if that's something that belonged to you. This is also how you catch spoofers. So this is why this is important, because instead of doing all these strict things, you do it on the other side. You catch people sending stuff from your domain. You go look up those IP addresses or whatever the domain is, and then you can start figuring it out. If their information is public, you can reach out to them, say, hey, why are you sending email as me? But again, that doesn't happen really that often. And then there's another section underneath this other sources that's called forwarded sources. So if someone forwards your email, you'll get a little thing that pops up that says like, hey, your email was forwarded by this source. And it just says the domain name and the IP address. What's good about that stuff is it gives you a little bit more peace of mind that you can kind of track where things are coming from. And it not only helps you understand how your deliverability is doing, it also, like, if something happens where somebody changes something, like when GoDaddy moved all their email essentials to Microsoft 365, this may have gotten picked up by that. It may have said, like, instead of saying it came from, secureserver.net, now maybe it comes from outlook.com. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're not authenticated anymore. And you got to go back and set that stuff up. Like, that's why this stuff is really good. And so that should be all, yep, that's all verified now. So we're done with that. And the last thing, postmaster.google.com. And there we go. It looks like creativethoughts.net is already verified in there, which is good. And now we can see, let's see if Jim's got data in there. We're going to expose Jim's reputation here. Maybe, we'll see. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's anything in there right now. And it could just be that it hasn't, picked up anything depending on how long it's been. Actually, I take that back. I know why it's not doing it. So here's a trick about Google Postmaster. This www actually won't work. I just saw that. You can't use the www in the domain in order for it to actually work properly, because what'll happen is it's expecting the emails to come from www.creativethoughts.net, when in reality, they come from creativethoughts.net. So we're actually going to update that, and it probably will put it, oh, see, and then here's a good example. It didn't pick it up, and it said, hey, we need you to put in this Google verification again. And so that just goes to show the difference. And so there's one verification there, but we're going to add this new one. And you don't have to worry about having multiples. It doesn't matter, because they're all unique. And so it doesn't like hurt anything by having more than one Google verification or other site verification. So, and usually GoDaddy's pretty quick with their system, so that should verify, and we'll give it a minute here. Okay, so let's come back over here, and we're gonna, now we remember this DMARC was red over here, so we're gonna scan that again, and we should see, yep, DMARC flipped over to yellow. Now remember, I talked about how it's gonna kind of try to do their little sales tactic, saying it's not, not protected enough. That's exactly what they're saying here, saying, oh, you're not yet protected against email spoofing and phishing. Well, it's because they think that reject is the only way to go for that. And they're not entirely wrong. It just means that if you want to block emails that come through that aren't passing the DMARC check, then you have to put a reject policy in. I don't generally do that, because it's just like, it's the kill it with fire option, and we don't need to kill it with fire. We just need to like throw some smoke out there. So, and then this last one here for this record, it says that it doesn't have a easy DMARC provided email address in the RUA tag. That's, I mean, you can see here, it even says, please sign up and let us manage your reports. It's a sales tactic. It's literally them saying, we should do this for you. And it's like, no, I just want the free check. So this here, biggest thing to look at is this part right here, valid DMARC. That's what you're looking for. So that all looks good now. And let's see if Google is recognizing there we go. That's verified. And I don't think it's going to show anything, because, oh, it does. Hey, look at that. Haha, we get to expose Jim's email habits. So check this out, guys. This is, now we're going to go a little run through Google Postmaster. But before I do that, we've gone through a lot. We're an hour and 10 minutes in here. Any questions? Do you guys see any questions on the Facebook side?
I've checked a few times. I haven't seen any.
Okay, no problem.
It's not there.
Do either of you have any questions?
I don't think so.
Cool. I know it's a lot, but I mean, this is the whole thing with email deliverability. Like when people ask, like, why don't more people do this? I think you're starting to understand why more people don't do this, because there's a lot involved to get it done right.
Yeah, they'll be ready to tap out.
But
Robin's over there like,
even this you can get done over time. It doesn't have
Right.
to all be done in one day.
Right.
Right.
But I would highly recommend that before you send, I mean, obviously there's people out there that just don't know what they don't know. So they're already sending emails. But if you want to do it right, all of this stuff should be set up before you even send your first email with that domain. So that way you're starting off on the right foot, because your email reputation with especially, we're going to look at that through Google Postmaster here. The reputation is like a credit score. It's really hard to go up and really easy to go down. And so that's the best analogy I can use, because, and I actually have my own case study where I was doing some marketing with a friend of mine, and I let him give me the emails to send for his product. And it ended up being where I had a really big spam rate and a really big dip in my deliverability because of what happened. And it took them 2 days to drop my domain reputation down, and it took me a month to get it back up. So just like a credit score, right? You do one bad thing and they're like, oh no, get out of here. And then you're like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to do good now. And 2-3 weeks later, you're like, come on now, I'm showing you I'm doing good. And they're like, I'm not really sure. And then finally they go, okay, we'll give it back up. So, but speaking of spam, So here's something that people see stuff like this. And so we're just looking at the last 60 days, and we can see that Jim sends emails pretty much every day. It's pretty close to that. And this first one is what's called user reported spam. So these are people that actually clicked on the button that said, send this to spam. Now, some people look at these spikes and they go, oh God, somebody's clicking my emails as spam. What do I do? Nothing. Just keep sending emails. People are going to click that button. Don't fret over these little ones. And look at this, less than a 2% spam rate. Jim, how many emails do you normally send at a time?
Up to 5,000 and 6,000.
Right. So if out of 5,000 and 6,000 and you get a less than 2% spam rate, that is really good. In general, I mean, yeah, we want to, ideally, you'd like to see more over here, like this less than 1%. But here, I mean, when you send 6,000 emails and you get a 1.7% at the highest, that basically means that the majority of people that got that email actually either read it or just didn't care and they just moved on. It's gonna happen. Spam's people are gonna
go
click
back a little further and see if there's one that's really big spiked.
Let's see here. We went back 120 days. Oh yeah, look at that. 3.4 back in September.
I sent to the wrong list.
Oh,
I remember
that, Robbin?
That'll do it. I remember that. That'll do it. So yeah. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing, like it's one of those things where when you go through and you have something like that, I mean, that's even not bad. When I'm talking about the spike that I had, it was 18%.
I had like 180 unsubscribes.
Yeah.
From email.
Oh, ouch. Yeah. And actually, let's do this. We'll go 90 days because
I have mine and my wife's business in my one get response. So I accidentally sent to the wrong list of people, and they did not like it.
Oh, I bet not. I bet. And knowing your wife's business, I bet they were just like.
I even as soon as I noticed, I sent out an apology, and I got more unsubscribes from the apology. Yep. I was like, really?
Yep. People be like that though. Like when they don't like it, they're like, no, I don't care. Get out of here. And it's like, all right. So yeah, so that's what this is. This is the user generated spam rate. And generally, I mean, look at how many emails you're sending versus what your percentage is. And sometimes the more emails you send, the higher percentage you might get. It's going to be inevitable. But ideally, I mean, this is really good. You're averaging right around that 1% or less, and that's really good. So keep up that for sure. So now we're going to look at IP reputation. So it looks, yellow obviously looks bad, but if you look at the legend up here, bad is dark red, low is light red, medium is yellow, and then high is green. Medium is pretty much like you're doing better than most people. Green is you're doing better than almost all the people. But this IP reputation has nothing to do with Jim's emails or anything like that. This IP address is actually a get response IP address. And so this is get response's reputation for their IP address. So, which is still good to know that they're not sitting in like a low or a bad state for the IPs that he's sending from. And you can click on each of these bars and see what IP it came from. And we can see that for the most part, it's the same IP address that Jim's emails are coming from. Oh, there's a 159. Remember we talked about those ranges, right? So there you go. There's a good example. It said, hey, the range was these IPs here, so there's really not a lot of control you have if you're using somebody else's platform like GetResponse or ActiveCampaign or something like that. The only time that this really is actionable by you is if you run your own email sending service, like a custom SMTP or something. But for this, that would be okay. Now, the real big one is, how is his domain reputation? Let's see. Hey, look at this. This is a really cool representation of showing. And let's actually, here, we'll go back to 120. Let's see. Okay, so here's around September, but like if you can see, it was medium, and then it was low, and they're like, hey Jim, you're kind of sending a little bit of spam here, buddy. Like, we're gonna knock you down a notch. And then it went back up to medium, and then he kind of sat here for a while, but then look at this, boom, high reputation as of the end of October coming into November. So what that tells me is that Jim has been taking what he's learning from Paul and Mike and me and everybody else, and he's implementing a lot of these strategies. He's focusing on what he's writing to be more valuable, and he's focusing on, a lot of these other systems to be, like making sure everything looks good. Now, here's what's going to help too. We just set up a lot of stuff for Jim and for what he's doing in order to make his deliverability better. The domain reputation is a mix of everything involved. It's your spam rate, it's your IP reputation, it's how many times you're being caught by the spam filters, how many times people are complaining about your emails, how many unsubscribes you're getting, which most people say, well, how can they track unsubscribes? Every link click, open, reply, everything is tracked by those email providers. And so if they click that unsubscribe button, that can also hurt your reputation as well. So this just goes to show that Jim's been improving his email game. It went down a little bit here, and then he's like, you know what, we're going to get better. Boom, bumped up here. We're going to get even better. Boom, bumped up here. So this is really good to see. And congratulations, having a high domain reputation from Google Postmaster just means that you're doing what they want you to do. And feedback loop, we probably should see nothing here. Yeah, all zeros across the board. So notice over here, this says average spam rate. So this is flagged identifiers, and we'll see if they actually have anything here. No, see, Postmaster's been weird about this. They don't have any pop-ups here anymore. But basically what this is this spam rate is the provider spam rate. So this is if Google flagged Jim as spam. So we can see that Google's been zero across the board. They're like, no, Jim, we don't see you being bad enough to have full spam here. Like, you're good. Keep on doing what you're doing. So he hasn't been marked as spam. Now, this one is where we're going to see some fun stuff. So we can see the SPF success rate has been kind of up and down. I bet, was it around this time here in September that GoDaddy switched you over to Microsoft 365?
I think so.
I bet that they updated that SPF record when they did that switch over, and it got rid of your get response SPF record because they actually integrated some of that and it just flipped it on you. And so that's where you had some of this up and down like this. Now what you're most likely going to see is it's probably going to go back up for the most part, but you're going to have also your DMARC success rate's going to go up too, because we gave you a DMARC policy today. So this is how you can check that stuff. And then encryption isn't really anything that most people are going to have any care about. It should be pretty much 100% across the board. Again, it's another one of those things that you don't have control over. But the big one down here is this delivery errors. And let's see if there's any. So you're doing really good. You have none. When I had that real big spam hit when I was helping my buddy with his promotion, and I had that 18% spam rate from the user generated spam, I actually had one that popped up here that said, it was because you can click on them and it'll tell you like what the message is. It actually gave me a message of suspected spam. And that's when my domain reputation dropped. Like that day, it dropped. And it's because it was multiple days. I did a 3-day promotion for him. It was multiple days of those things going on. And then they were like, all right, you're getting high spam rates for like 3 days in a row. We got to kick you down a notch. And they did. And then I stopped, it was only that short time. I went back to my normal email sending habits and they bumped me back up earlier at the end of October here. So, but yeah, so this is what you want to see. I mean, 0 across the board. This just means that Jim hasn't had any problems with his email delivery. So this is delivery, not deliverability. This means that all his emails that have gone out are generally making it to the recipients as long as the email was valid and it wasn't full. So that's really good to see. And so this is just a quick overview of what Postmaster can do for you and how powerful it is. And this is why I love it, because Google is the largest email provider. So why not let them tell you how you're doing in their eyes? Because you can basically think like, if you're like, we look back here at this domain reputation, if Jim's doing really good with Google and having high reputation here, that means that other email providers are also seeing that same thing. They have some variation, but it's really not that much. And in reality, here's what's interesting about this. Every year, all of the big marketing heads and all of the big email provider companies actually get together at a summit and decide how they're going to update all their spam algorithms and their filters and all that stuff. And they all basically do the same thing now. It's very rare to see different things done. But here's another interesting thought is I actually have, as of about 6 months ago, I have a signed NDA with Google. I actually have a rep at Google that I get to reach out to and talk to and find out a lot about this stuff. And that's why I've blown up so big when it comes to the email deliverability, because I can literally call somebody and say, hey, I got this question from somebody. What does this mean? Or how do I do this? Or what's this all about? And he gave me a little piece of information that I thought was really interesting about how Google handles their algorithm for all of their spam stuff. They have multiple software engineers like coders and programmers that work on one piece of each of the algorithm, and they're not allowed to talk to each other about the code. So that way, one person does not know everything about the algorithm, so they can't go sell that knowledge to some other company and say, here's what our algorithm does. Not only does it save Google from having that information get out, but it also prevents people from circumventing the system and getting their emails through the spam filters by knowing what they all do. So if you figure out one of them, then you can't figure out them all, because you can't go like, hunt down a developer and go, tell me what it is. It's like, he's going to go, I only know this one piece. I work on Postmaster. That's it. And they go, well, who knows the rest? I don't know, So, but yeah, he told me that little tidbit. He's like, hey, this is how this works. Like literally not one person in Google knows the entire algorithm, and that's done by design. So anyways, I think that's pretty much it. We have everything updated. You are basically good to go. And that is exactly what I do. Now, this one was a little bit more involved because I did some training and things like that during it, but it usually takes me about an hour. And I do these email deliverability audits like this, where I literally go in and identify all of the problems that could be there. I set up these reporting structures and I do all of this kind of stuff. And it's literally just a run through. I do it two different ways. I can do an audit like this where we go in and kind of talk about what's happening, or I have some people that pay me just to go in and get it done. And I do that a lot with clients on Fiverr. I do that a lot with other clients that get referred to me. And I've done it with a couple different people in HBA. I've done it with a couple people that I've met through other programs and platforms. And the one thing I will say about this is that if anybody looks at this and they go, I have no idea, I don't know what to do, I need help, you can find me on Fiverr by going to my profile, which we'll end up putting in. I'll probably leave a comment on the live page and just put it in there and put the link to my Fiverr profile. You can get me there. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can message one of my videos on YouTube. You can message Jim and say, how do I get a hold of Josh? Like, doesn't matter how you go out. You can message Robbin, doesn't matter. I have absolutely no problem helping people out, but I want to be forthcoming and let people know that, Jim and Robbin and I all agreed together to do this together on this call I talked to Jim and said, yeah, I'm totally cool with doing that. It helps me with exposure. It helps Jim with exposure. It helps his email stuff out. This is a mutual agreement here, right? But people who come to me and are asking for help, it's not free. You can see how long this stuff took. You can see what's involved. This is a lot of my expertise. And so if people want to be on a call like this with me, where I walk them through everything, it's $100 minimum. So that's my time for an hour. And I'm telling you guys this now, that's only that price until January 1st. January 1st, my prices are doubling because I've had
I was on your post like, nah, this is not. I was like, this is at least $500 worth of.
Yeah.
It
So
was like $100.
I was
That's good on
doing
you,
it.
Josh.
I started
Mhm.
doing it this year, just kind of getting into it, seeing where I'm at. And my hourly rate is actually going up to that price. And then the email deliverability audits, where I actually record the screen and show them and train them, that's actually going up to $300.
Nice.
Just the setup to go in and just get this done, it's going to go up to $200 on January 1st. And so people through Fiverr can still get it for cheaper, but they get like the very bare minimum of work of me going in and just boom, 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 get it done and get out. I'm done in like 20, 30 minutes tops.
Gotcha.
But that's a front door to my business, right? It's like a revolving door, but that's not going to be there forever. So,
And this
Nice.
replay will be up all week, so you can use it yourself, Josh, to send out to other people, or
Yep.
however, so it's here all week. Watch it as many times as you want.
Yeah.
It'll be on YouTube, but I may end up just hiding this one on YouTube after a week. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of value in here that can be definitely this could go easily behind a paywall there, Jim, for you, of like, hey, you want to watch Josh go through and literally do all my email deliverability stuff, here you go.
right.
Mhm. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to show again real quick just how you can get started with whoever sent you here. Let me share my screen real quick and show you the page that you should be on. If you got an email to come and watch us tonight, do this. The page you should be on is this page right here, or a very similar variation of it. Click on this button right here in the middle. Give me just a minute and I'll throw in a bonus. I'll throw the book on the website. And if you refresh your screen, hold on, not done yet. Refresh your screen and the book will be up until about midnight tonight. So I'll show you there. I'll refresh the screen and you can get our 30-minute workday book. This button is also coded to whoever sent you here. This book, actually, I brought in 1,300 people into the HBA business using this book. So it's a very, very valuable book. It's 183 pages and talks about everything you need to know in affiliate marketing specifically, but I think in any business. So at least grab a copy of that while it's up here. I don't leave it up for long because it's very valuable. Hit this green button. I mean, this red button to get started in the all-in-one business, but at the very least, grab yourself a copy of the book. Let me stop the share. Josh, I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Good stuff.
I learned my stuff was trash. Some of the websites that you went through, I was able to just go through it because it was, easy.
Yep.
I got some work to do.
Well,
like,
you know how to get a hold of me too if you need help.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
but yeah,
Right.
no, I'm glad that we were able to do this. I love this stuff. I love being able to help people get their deliverability going because, email marketing should be the cornerstone of everybody's business. And in reality, if you don't have good deliverability, like Robbin talked about early on, if you're not getting the inboxes and you're not getting people to see your emails, you're losing money. I mean, that's just the gist of it. You're leaving money on the table by not having this stuff done. And so if you're not sure how to do it, reach out. Definitely we can get you going. And if you want to try to watch it and do it yourself, best of luck.
It's like an easy way to give yourself a raise because every percent that it goes up is a percent your income goes up.
Absolutely.
So it's directly correlated. So awesome.
Nice.
All right. I'm going to stop the live.
See ya.
See you guys.
Everybody have a good night.